welcome to episode 52 of Women, Sex, God, Power. Today's episode is called How to Be a Selfish Woman, Reclaiming Your Power, Your Voice, and Your Energy. Before I begin, just to mention, if you are a new listener of this podcast or if you are a regular listener of this podcast, you may have heard that I've recently released a new body of work called the Temple of the High Priestess, which is a membership, a 6-month membership where I'm guiding you through the primary initiations that every single woman on the priestess path must walk through in order to overcome her fears of persecution, her fears of being visible, her fears of being powerful, her fears around having wealth, having autonomy, and stepping into her artistry and her bigness. So you get the idea. Everything that I'm guiding you through inside of a temple is very, very specific to what every single highly sensitive, spiritually sensitive woman has to move through in order to overcome these fears. So you can visit the show notes. You can choose out of 3 different ways to enter the temple. You can also watch the masterclass for 4 thresholds to priestess initiations. It's only £7. I would highly recommend that you dive in and watch that. Please make sure that you are following me on this podcast page or on Instagram or on Substack in order to stay connected to any new bodies of work that I release that can support you in your empowerment journey. Because if you're not following me on these platforms, you're probably not going to hear about what I've released because I'm really bad at promoting myself. I don't like having to shout loudly about the things that I've created. But there is a time limit for you to get hold of these offers, such as the temple membership, because the early bird offer for this is going to end on the 28th of May. When you finish this episode, make sure that you go to the show notes, that you either sign up for the masterclass or you follow me on Instagram or you follow me on this page so you stay up to date with the latest releases. Okay, without further ado, here's today's episode. There are a lot of really simplified takes on what it means to become a selfish woman. I hate that word because what does it even mean to be selfish as a woman? It means to simply stop orienting and revolving your identity and your desires, your needs around society's antiquated ideas of what a woman should be, around men's antiquated ideas. A lot of the content that is offered around becoming selfish as a woman and reclaiming your time and your energy for yourself miss a really crucial psychological element to this process, which I'm going to cover today, because it's not as simple as simply saying, I'm just going to focus on myself from now on. I'm just going to put all of my energy and my time into me. Being selfish as a woman means claiming your truest desires, your most authentic and actualized and multifaceted self. The self that you know yourself to be internally, but you don't have the courage, and this is the most important part, that you don't have the courage to live out in the world, in your relationships, because you don't feel safe to do so. You don't feel safe to claim that part. So this is what most women do. Most women will move through their life keeping the true self secret, private, unintegrated in their daily experience. And if you're an artist and a creative and any woman that wants to be public in any way, this is even more important for you to really master, to heal, because it's not possible, and I would say this to all women, it's not possible to manifest the life that you really want until you have integrated the true self, the woman that you know yourself to be, into external reality, until that internal self is integrated into your everyday experience and you begin to live as her in your everyday experience. Being selfish means I, as a woman, am no longer orienting any aspect of myself or my life around others. I orient it around my desires, my needs, my goals, my aspirations. Write that down, because this is the most important work that you will ever do. This is a reconstruction of identity, becoming selfish as a woman, prioritizing yourself. It's not something that you just switch on in 24 hours. It's a total reconstruction of your identity where you remove your attention and your energy from catering to the way that the world has decided it needs to perceive you as being. We don't even realize we're doing this most of the time because it's unconscious. But the really common ways that we do this are obviously through people pleasing, through softening our energy or our presence, toning down our intensity or our passion so that we become more digestible for people, not putting out the art that we want to put out into the world because we think it's too intense and it's going to be too much for people to handle, or it's going to make the people who are closest to us perceive us differently. Good, because that's what liberates you. This is what I mean about taking the desires for true self, the self that you know yourself to be, and actualizing that into the world. And I'm going to speak about that a little bit more in a few minutes. So this process means that your identity is now rooted in your skills, your talents, your creativity, your heart. You are building an identity that orients around those inner energies, those inner structures, rather than how others need to perceive you for their own comfort. So the selfish woman is essentially a woman who is no longer available to be extracted from. Reduce, diminish her true nature, her true opinions, her true needs in each and every moment in order to accommodate others. Essentially, you have to undomesticate yourself, right? You have been trained, every woman is born bearing these societal structures and expectations of patriarchy. So in the deconstruction process, you have to uninstitutionalize yourself. You have to go feral, essentially. Any training that you've inherited that has taken you out of your responsiveness as a woman, your responsiveness to what is truly abnormal in what is expected of you. And one of the greatest abnormalities is how women are just expected to be this free, unending source of love and forgiveness and nurture and nourishment for everyone around them. So you have to go through this process of undomesticating yourself and observing yourself from the outside to witness all of the different ways that you have caged yourself within an identity that has to be self-serving, that has to make herself indispensable, that has to make herself more simplistic for everybody else to understand. Women are not meant to be simple. Women are not simple. Humans are not simple. Humans are deeply complex creatures. We allow men to be complex all the fucking time. We allow men to be messy. Look at a lot of the novels or the movies starring male antagonists and protagonists, and how often the starring character, the main character, is allowed to be complex, difficult, psychologically messed up, a menace, highly destructive, someone that literally destroys the lives of the women and the people around him, and somehow that character will often be empathized with or celebrated. But if it was a woman, as we know, if it was a woman perpetuating or displaying the very same behaviors, she would be immediately characterized as someone who is horrible, who is cruel, who should be put in a mental institution. So this is part of the undomestication process that you have to go through, allowing yourself as a woman to be complex, to be impossible to be understood, to be mysterious, to be multifaceted, all of the things that you are. I think I'm a little bit of a master at this, if I might say so myself, because I know for a fact that my audience doesn't have a relationship with me where they've figured me out or where they can pinpoint who I am in terms of my identity. There is a consistency in my presentation, obviously, with how I show up as an educator, but as a woman, as a being, I'm extremely complicated and contradictory and have many, many different opposing energies inside of me that all represent a part of my authentic self. And I allow myself to be that. And in doing so, it means that a lot of the projections that are sent my way have nowhere to land, because I have claimed my complexity, I've claimed my multidimensionality, and I have no interest in explaining myself to anyone to make myself better understood. Because what do I gain from that? What do you gain from that as a woman? You think it's necessary to explain yourself because you still seek to find safety in other people's comfort, in other people being more comfortable with you. So you rush to explain yourself, you rush to clarify things about yourself that often can't be clarified, especially if you're a very, if you're an artist with a very deep, ever-changing, ever-transforming and expanding inner world, but you rush to explain things about yourself that people actually don't have the emotional capacity or spiritual maturity to understand, in the limitations of clinging to egoic constructs and the ego's need to have everything in its control and everything be consistent and repetitive and familiar. You rush to explain who you are as a woman to the people in your life because you're trying to seek some sort of safety or regulation through them having a better understanding and clarity of who you are. And that emotional regulation can never ever be maintained or received through seeking understanding through people who do not have the capacity to understand you. Probably could have simplified my explanation, but do you get what I'm saying? The reason that you have this impulse to explain yourself to people is because you haven't claimed and you haven't become comfortable with who you truly are. So earlier on, I was talking about merging the internal self, the woman that you know yourself to be, with external reality. Allowing yourself to be perceived as that woman, because that's true liberation. When we don't claim the authentic self, we have to live out the truth of who we are in privacy. We have to conceal the magic and the beauty and also the dramaticism and the horrors of who we truly are, who we feel ourselves to be, part of the human experience that we are having. We live out our days having to contain, conceal, hide, or make palpable or diminish the brilliance of that self whilst presenting a completely different person, persona, identity to the world. This causes a lot of pain and a lot of friction, a lot of frustration and a lot of exhaustion, because we are not living as the woman that we truly are. And this also applies to men as well, right? The most miserable, angry and frustrated people on this earth, and you see this with men all the time, are the people who are not living authentically because they've not found the courage within themselves to do that work of integrating the inner desires, the inner needs, the expression, right? The total manifestation and the total expression of who they really are in the world. That's the whole purpose that we are here as beings. That's why we incarnate, to actualize what exists inside of us in physical reality. That is the whole joy of the human experience. To take what we know to be true as writers, as singers, as musicians, as teachers, as healers, as beings, as innately creatively expressive beings, and allow it to be manifested through us, to be witnessed by others. But it's not even about being witnessed by others. It's just a process of finding a way, finding a channel, finding the voice, finding our inner voice, so that we can articulate what lies deep within us. That's the whole reason you incarnated. So as a woman, when you are not claiming that self, it's very, very painful. And I'm someone who has personally lived through this for 10 years of my life. When I couldn't pursue music, when I couldn't pursue my career as a singer, because I was moving through so much deep pain and unresolved trauma, layers and layers of childhood persecution as a young woman, ancestral persecution coming from an Islamic culture that doesn't want women to be visible or sexy or beautiful or powerful. I had to go through a total reconstruction, total destruction, and then a total reconstruction of myself. I had to move so deeply into the trenches, into the deepest, darkest realms of my shadow and my psyche, excavate and purify everything that was not an inherent part of me so that I could get to the gold and the truest form of who I am, the truest essence of who I am that lies beyond all of that. Internal archaeology, right? Alchemy. This is the process of alchemy. So in this process of becoming a selfish woman, living wholly and completely for your own desires, your own aspirations, your own ambitions, pouring all of your life force and energy into your self-actualization, you need to be willing to do this. Hello, my love. I'm interrupting this episode just for a quick moment to let you know that my Temple of a High Priestess membership has just opened. This is a 6-month journey where together you and I will be moving through the primary initiations and the primary themes that every business owner, artist, creative, spiritually sensitive woman must move through in order to step into greater visibility, build financial freedom from her artistry, and balance being both a successful artist with successful entrepreneurship. Inside this membership, I am not giving you more content. What is offered inside of a temple is a deeply sacred space that is here to call you into your power, realign you with matriarchal and indigenous wisdom teachings and devotional practices, so that everything that you do, from making money to creating content, creating art, building your online platform, interacting and engaging with your audience and community, feels deeply nourishing. This membership is specifically designed for you if you are spiritually gifted, perceptive, neurodivergent or autistic, desiring to blend your spiritual path with your artistry and with entrepreneurship. You might be someone who knows that they are meant to lead, create, and be seen, but you are seeking support in order to build your capacity, your confidence, your emotional resilience to be able to consistently show up on camera, post online, use your voice without being hijacked by trauma or overwhelm. This is also for you if you're a woman who is past the stage of healing, but you don't feel fully embodied in your power as of yet, and you're looking for the structure, the strategy, and the direction to take the spiritual knowledge that you've accumulated over the years and package it into products and soul work that you can easily scale to a multi-6-figure business. You're also a woman who is aware that you are here for more impact, more recognition, more reach, but you're not willing to perform or force your way to success. Everything that we're doing inside of a temple is specifically designed to help you deepen your relationship with your voice, your body, and your power. You can choose out of 3 different ways to enter the temple, and you can visit the show notes to join for a 1-month trial period as of today. You can also watch my brand new masterclass, The 4 Thresholds to Priestess Power, to get a taste of the work that we'll be doing inside of the membership. Everything you need to get started is in the show notes, so do make sure that you visit them once you've finished listening to this episode. You need to be willing to break the illusion that you have created of yourself, that you have led with up until now, that people currently believe you as being, and that people benefit from you being. You have to be willing to leave that version of yourself behind, to bury her, to lay her down to rest in the earth once and for all. Very Scorpio coded. But this is really what it takes, right? The version of you that has been so beloved and supported and embraced that men fantasize over because you haven't claimed your power. And therefore it leaves you wide open for men to project their fantasies onto you. You have to be willing to leave all traces of the woman that you have been up until this moment, that might have brought you love and support, that might have brought you adoration, right? But for all of the wrong reasons, only because that version of you is not particularly threatening and not particularly challenging. And it's a version of you that other people in your life can orient themselves around, that they can cling on to and find solace in or solace through. This is so often, almost always, why really powerful women, you will never see them surrounded by groups of people. You will never see them integrated into a big circle of friends or a big community, because people cannot orient their identity around her. If you are the type of person who can only find comfort in being in communication or being in friendship or solidarity with people who are like you or similar to you and don't threaten you, then there's no way in hell that you can exist in the same space as a woman who has claimed her power and not have some sort of psychological or spiritual awakening. Because that's just what the woman who has claimed the depth of her power and her true self, that is the effect that she has on people around her. So this concept of becoming a selfish woman, a self-serving woman, you see why it's not as simplistic and as easy as people make it out to be, because it's not just about centering your own desires and ambitions and preserving your energy for the creation of what you want. It's a total identity transformation, recalibration. It means that you have to be willing to be seen for who you truly are, and not the facade that you've presented yourself as being that may have kept you safe, but has ultimately also kept you very small and very unfulfilled, because you are not being seen for the truth of who you are. Because ultimately, when we haven't claimed the true self, when we are not living authentically, and you already know this, I'm sure that every woman listening to this knows this, because you've probably gone through this process already, you are still hiding behind a false self, a masked self, maybe a trauma persona that you've created for your own safety, for your own protection. We all do this. This is just the psychological defense mechanism that our protector parts take on to ensure that no more harm befalls us. But sooner than later in our healing journey, we get to a place where it becomes unbearable to live that way. To become a selfish woman means to be willing to disrupt and leave behind the self that was constructed so that you would be understood and loved by others. And you cannot simultaneously project that false self, project that false persona, and also live authentically as your true self, right? The two cannot coexist. So what has to happen in that process is that the false self, the illusion that you projected, the illusion of yourself that you live within, that you carry into relationships, it has to be dismantled. You have to leave her behind. You have to go through some sort of grieving process, right? The grief in this process cannot be avoided. You have to go through some sort of grieving process, grieving the version of yourself that has served you in some way up until now, because even a trauma persona serves us in some way, but is now undeniably getting in the way of you actually being able to go through this integration process of claiming your power, claiming your authentic desires, and allowing those to be manifested and actualized through your expression. The biggest form of protection that your psyche as a woman is putting in place to shield you or prevent you from going through that transformation of claiming the authentic self, Claiming the authentic desires is ensuring that you don't lose belonging, ensuring that you don't lose the relationships that you currently have. Because there is a part of you that understands that in collapsing the illusion of who you have presented yourself as being, who you have lived as publicly up until now, is going to cost you relationship. I've spoken quite a few times about when we want something, right? When we want to manifest a dream, when we want more money, we want more autonomy, we want to experience something different to what we've lived out up until now. Without exception, in that process of wanting to gain something better than what we have, something must be sacrificed. An identity, a friendship, a relationship. There is something that must be sacrificed in the process of you claiming what you want. You cannot continue to live as you are, have the experience that you're having, and also gain the things that you desire without having to make any sacrifice along the way. So the reason why most women don't claim their power is because they know unconsciously that something will have to be sacrificed. They may have to lose belonging for a period of time. They may have to part with everyone in their life. And the initiation here, because it is an initiation, is, do you love yourself enough? Do you believe in yourself enough? Do you believe in your dreams enough to be willing to give over and let go of what is not actually allowing you to live authentically? Because, as I said at the beginning of the episode, you cannot manifest the life that you want from the inauthentic version of you. You cannot. You might still manifest, but what will be manifested will never be a representation of your true power, because you're not manifesting from the authentic self. You haven't claimed that self. You haven't welcomed her into your reality, right? This is a ritual. You need to welcome back in the self that you've exiled, the self that you've pushed out, that you've buried, that you've told so many times repeatedly throughout your life, either consciously or unconsciously, you're not welcome in my experience. I can't live as you. I don't have space for you in my life. Not right now. Maybe later, right? I have lived through this experience, my love, for 10 years of my life. So I have lived it. I know the process, I know the psyche, I know the ego inside out, I know all of the tricks, all of the little things it will do to try and get you to negotiate. And you can't negotiate. And what is really being asked of you as a woman on the spiritual path, as a woman on the priestess path, is to live in total harmony and alignment with yourself, with who you truly are, to not shape-shift yourself according to the environment that you're in. So the biggest task that you have as a woman is to claim all of the parts that you have exiled, that historically women have been forced to exile. Your task is to reject all of the demands and societal expectations, to question everything that you have taken on as an unnecessary burden in this chapter of your life, that is in opposition with who you truly know yourself to be. Anything that is rooted in religious dogma, tradition, convention, normalities, which feels maybe familiar or safe because it's what the matrix of this world has continually projected, but doesn't actually feel true to your body, to your being. It's not something that you are able to endorse and take on without poisoning yourself, without limiting yourself, without sacrificing the authenticity of your life path. The best example that I can give you of someone who is living inauthentically is the gay man who is pretending to be straight. We have many, many modern day examples of gay men who are at war with themselves because their external existence is not a match to who they internally are. This is the best example I can give you. And because they cannot accept who they truly are, the consequences of that are absolutely devastating. As a result, they are extremely destructive. They are always angry, they are always miserable, and they are always looking for other people to blame and project their rage, their unresolved inner conflict onto others. It's not obviously just the gay man who is trying to present as straight. Society is full of miserable people who have not claimed the true self, the authentic desires, who are either unable to because of circumstances, but I would largely argue that it's more so because of the lack of courage, the lack of willingness to go through the process of transformation and alchemization involved with claiming that true self and presenting as that person to the rest of the world. So the person who has not claimed those internal desires, the person, the woman, the man that they know themselves to be, they are always looking for someone to blame because they are angry at themselves for not having the courage to claim who they truly are. For women who do not claim their true self, this doesn't typically always manifest as destruction or, destroying the lives of the people around them in the same way that men tend to. For women, this manifests as depletion and exhaustion. So, because she's not living a life that is true to herself, true to what her soul wants, true to how her energy is designed to manifest through her, designed to express through her. So your energy is designed to move in a certain direction, express itself through the avenue of maybe rage or dark femininity or sexuality and sensuality through the vehicle of your artistry. But you're not allowing it to move in that direction. You're not giving it the vessel, the voice, the channel to do so. And the consequence of that is deep, unending depletion and exhaustion. A lot of exhaustion that women go through is not rooted in physical exhaustion. It is rooted in not allowing the energy of who they are, the expression of who they are, to move through them in the way that it desires. I hope that you're beginning to recognize why it's so important to work on integrating more of those inner desires and aspirations into your external reality. And that this is so much more than simply becoming selfish, right? This is all about living authentically. This is all about living the most expansive and the most magical and beautiful and vibrant existence, because you are following the pulse of your soul. You are listening. You are in intimate communication with how your being wants to move through the world at every given moment. This is the hardest transformation that any woman will ever have to undergo. Mark my words. This is not light work. Because you and I both know that when you claim the authentic woman, when you claim your internal desires, that version of you is most likely not going to be supported by the people around you. Because remember, at the beginning of the episode, I said that being selfish simply means no longer establishing an identity as a woman, which revolves around who everyone wants you to be. Which is incredibly difficult for most women because their entire identity is rooted in catering to how other people perceive them. They will literally build an entire identity, personality, an entire life which revolves around how others want them to be, the roles that others want them to perform, rather than who they actually are. Right? So, those typical roles, as we know, are the people pleaser, the soft woman, the good girl, the good daughter, the accommodating wife, blah, 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 right? All of the things that we've seen 1,001 times. When actually, the true self is passionate and wrathful and sexually charged and confrontational and messy and spontaneous. And the reason that you don't claim that self, the main primary reason is always because everyone in your reality right now endorses and supports you and loves you for being sweet and easy and comfortable to be around. And I keep coming back to this integration process between the internal desires and self and the external presentation of yourself. Because when you have not gone through that process, what happens instead is you become 10 different women. You have a persona for your partner, and then a persona for your boss, and then a persona for your online audience, and a persona for your parents. And in all of those personas, you are not only performing, but you have to literally scatter and stretch your energy between all of these different versions of yourself so that you can keep other people around you comfortable and also use them as a mirror to reflect back your worth. And the only way that you can break this cycle, my love, this exhausting cycle, okay, of having to be all of these different women is by no longer using people as that mirror that is reflecting back at you that you are lovable, that you deserve to belong, that you deserve to be supported, as long as you are constantly sacrificing yourself, a part of yourself in that process. This is why I said you have to be willing to collapse and dismantle the illusion of who people believe you to be, of who you have lived as up until this moment. And when you finally choose who you really are, you choose to live as that in the world, other people's projections have nowhere to land. They have no weight, they have no power, they have no substance, they have no meaning. They cannot impact you because there is nowhere in your reality for those projections to resonate as a truth, right? I went through this process as a singer. It's so easy and common for people to project onto you as a singer, as an actor, as a performer of any kind, if you are not actually presenting yourself as the totality of your full expression in your full feminine power. So I went through this process as a singer when I first came out as a singer in 2010. I had men projecting their sexual fantasies onto me left, right, and centre because all they saw me as was a body and a voice. That's all I was to people. Just an object, a thing to consume with no clear identity of her own. And it wasn't because I didn't have identity, it was just because I wasn't voicing my identity with the same depth of power and persistence that I am now. So when I look at the journey I've gone on from having a predominantly male fan base who projected all of these sexual fantasies onto me because they were not witnessing me as a fully formed individual or human with opinions and a personality and a complex inner world, because I hadn't presented as that, it was really easy to project those desires onto me. But the moment that I claimed more of my identity, the totality of who I am in my expression as an educator, also as an artist, as someone who has evidently very strong opinions, those specific projections no longer had a place to land. It truly shifted everything for me. Choosing the authentic self is also the ultimate act of self-love, right? Because it means that you are announcing not just to yourself, but to the rest of the world. You are announcing to the world in the way that you hold yourself, the way that you speak, the way that you present, how I feel about myself, how I feel about my art, my life path, my purpose, my creative process is more important than how you feel. In fact, how you feel is not important at all. How you feel is not going to dictate or impact or affect in any shape or form the way that I hold myself publicly, the way that I present myself as being, the expansiveness that I get to experience as a creative, as an artist. My partner might not like it, my friends might not like it, my family might reject it. I don't care. Because how I feel about my life path, how I feel about what I am creating in the world is more important than how anybody else feels or responds. That is the ultimate act of self-love. Do you understand that in doing that and in consistently living as that woman, No one has power over you anymore. No societal narrative that is thrown at you, no insults, no fear-mongering around, well, you'll never find a partner, you'll never find a man, none of it holds power over you anymore. There is nowhere for it to land inside of your body, inside of your psyche, because you have claimed what is truly important to you, which is living as the woman that you internally know yourself to be, allowing yourself to be witnessed as that, giving yourself permission to make other people uncomfortable, and not making it your responsibility to take on the burden of how others view you. That's their experience to have. That is their experience to have, right? A self-actualized artist or singer, I can speak about this as someone who has mastered this process after a decade, is not taking on other people's perceptions of them. So if they get hateful comments, if they get people telling them, you're a monster, you're disgusting, you're evil, you're whatever it is that is thrown their way, whatever insult out of all the languages on planet Earth, all of the insults that can be used, it's like water off a duck's back, as the saying goes. They are not taking on that projection as a truth in any part of their psyche or being. It will never influence or impact how they show up to the world, how they express themselves. So this is true self-love. This is true self-love, okay? What I would like to leave you with for today's episode is, how can you begin claiming more of the desires, more of the internal landscape, more of the hidden aspects, the parts of you that you feel you must keep secret, that you must keep private? What is the work that you can begin to do to claim more of those parts of yourself and integrate them into your reality, into your art? Bring more of them into your relationships, into your relationship with your audience. As the divine and the dark feminine continues to rise on this earth at this crucial time in our history, this is the most important work that you can be doing as a woman. Living authentically. Living authentically means living in your power, living in alignment with the woman that you know yourself to be, in your heart of hearts. The woman that maybe nobody else in your life has witnessed up until now. But it's claiming more of her, allowing yourself to be witnessed as that. Thank you for tuning in to listen to this episode. If you haven't already, please do make sure that you follow me on this podcast page. You can also follow me via my Instagram, where I post on all of these latest episodes as well. All of those details are in the show notes on this platform, so do go visit the show notes. Do make sure that if you are interested in joining the Temple of the High Priestess membership, where we will be doing all of the work that I have discussed on today's episode, helping you move through those primary initiations, claim back your power, claim your voice, claim your path, and walk it with pride and courage. Do make sure that you check out the 3 different ways that you can enter the temple. If you enter the temple via the membership, you have the option to cancel your subscription anytime. There are no long-term commitments. But if you do enter the temple via the one-time payment, then you get an added bonus of 3 months of in-program support, where I will be supporting you for 3 months through the process that you're personally moving through at this time in relationship to a lot of the themes that we've discussed on this podcast. And if you want a taste of the work that we're doing inside the temple, do make sure that you watch the masterclass in the show notes, Priestess Initiations into Your Power. Is only £7 and it will be worth every single minute of your time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I will see you next time.